Hi, this is Pamela Worth from the Hello Health Encouraging Wellness podcast. And today I have Olivia Goodreau. She is founder of LivLyme Foundation, as well as the TickTracker and LongHaulTracker and Tickmojis apps. And so, Olivia, thank you so much for being with us today, and can't wait to hear more about your story and your journey and so many amazing things that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about the foundation and how and why you got into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was bitten by a tick at the Lake of the Ozarks when I was 7 years old. So I was going into my second grade year, and I didn't see the tick and I didn't have a bullseye rash. And then a couple weeks later, I started having very classic Lyme disease and tick-borne illness symptoms. I felt like I had the flu. And I just kept on progressing with these symptoms, and I started blacking out and losing my vision for periods at a time. I couldn't physically hold up my head to do my math homework. So my teachers were letting me lay down on the floor so I can do the work. I felt, aches and pains all over. People thought that maybe I had a virus, something was going on in the school. And then over the course of 18 months, I saw 51 doctors, and every single one of them misdiagnosed me or didn't know what was wrong with me until my 51st doctor. And this was after 18 months of CAT scans, EKGs, MRIs, upper and lower endoscopies. I had my adenoids removed and hundreds of blood draws. And, at first they told me that I was, dehydrated. I'm at a high altitude state here in Colorado. You need to drink more water, which is, for a Colorado native, it's a tiny bit offensive just to say that. And then, they thought that something again was going around school. They thought that maybe I had late stage autism. They thought that I had, ADHD, a ton of other neurological disorders. They then misdiagnosed me with Wilson's disease, which is a terrible genetic disorder. And at that point, I was 8 years old. And while other kids were out on spring break, I was being told that I would not live as long as the other kids in my class, which was truly heartbreaking. And hear that at, 8 years old, you thought that everything was over. And then, the DNA test came back saying that was negative. And then they thought that I was making it up. When they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, they kind of turned on me and they said, do you think your parents love your little brothers more than they love you? Do you have friends at school? Are you lonely? And I love my parents. I have great relationships with everyone. So I was really confused why they were asking me all these questions. And then finally, the 51st doctor came around. She saw my symptoms and said, hey, I have a patient who has similar symptoms to you, and they ended up having Lyme disease. Let me do a Lyme test on you. I was off the charts. I believe that I was so off the charts. I set a record for Children's Hospital or something like that. I was put on 30 days of doxycycline, said that I would be back to normal. By day 25, I actually thought that I was going to be okay in the end. And then by day 35, I was back to square one. I felt terrible. So then 3 years later, seeing 4 more doctors, I finally met my current Lyme literate doctor, Dr. Rachel Horowitz, and he has saved my life time and time again. And so I'm getting treatment from him. And this is very, very early on. I had just met him, I believe, a couple of days ago. And so we had just figured out when to schedule my appointment with him. And I decided, a couple probably weeks or even days before I met Dr. Horowitz, I decided that I wanted to start a nonprofit. And that was because I had read a story about a mom and her son, and they were living in their car so they could afford the boy's Lyme disease medication. And out of all the stories that I had read, because I was doing research and, trying to figure out other people who were like me, that story really stuck with me. And I decided that I could either sit around and wait for someone to help me, or I could, be the help, and I could be proactive in my own health and really, be in the front lines and help myself and other people. And so when I met Dr. Horowitz, I said, hey, I'm having a gala. I would love for you to speak. And he said, the only time that I could do it is April 8th. And I was like, perfect. That's when we'll have it. I did not have a nonprofit, did not have anything else planned. I completely just on the spot. And, when he finally left his conference here in Colorado, my mom turned to me and she was like, so a gala, for what? And I was like, I want to start a nonprofit. And then in April 29th of 2017, I started the LivLyme Foundation. And the main goals that we have is to help kids that cannot afford their Lyme disease medication and to provide funding for scientists so they can have better treatments, better cures, better testing, all more affordable and all more available to everyone else. I cannot hear you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much to talk about. So as we're kind of thinking about this, what are some of the most typical symptoms for Lyme?
Yes, absolutely. So Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses, they have a very wide range of symptoms, and they are classic chameleon diseases. I was misdiagnosed dozens of times because my symptoms were so various. And so they said the words like obscure, that they didn't really know, because they would think it's this, or they would think it's some illness, but they would say, you're lacking this one vital symptom. And then they would go over to the other illness and say the exact same thing about it. And so for me personally, and I know that for most Lyme patients, this does happen. Brain fog is a very big symptom when, you feel like there's cotton stuffed in your head. You can't think straight. Sometimes you can have light sensitivity and sound sensitivity. That's what I had, especially light sensitivity. More or less, you feel like you have the flu. You feel like you have come down with a virus or some kind of other, common sickness, common cold. And that's what people originally start out with. That's how they kind of get into, I guess, like the healthcare world, is they go in saying, I think I have the flu. For me, aches and pains, and they travel as well, which again is very hard to diagnose if, yesterday your elbow was hurting, but now it's your knee that's hurting. For me, I know that blacking out and losing your vision, it can happen to people. It is more uncommon. I have Lyme disease in all my organs. So that includes the brain. And so, brain fog, just, having these word jumbling moments, that's a very big thing for me, to where I mix up the words, I mix up sentences, phrases, anything like that. Kind of losing the words off, like tip of my tongue. Oh, they're on the tip of my tongue. Always like that. I know people who have lost the ability to walk. I know people who have lost the ability to read completely. I have a very good friend, retired Colonel Nicole Malachowski. And when she described her symptoms, she said, I went to the pet store to go get food for my cat. I came home and I realized that I didn't have a cat at all. She didn't own a cat. And so NeuroLyme, again, it's a giant range and variety of different symptoms. The main ones that I had, though, brain fog, body aches, and flu-like symptoms, were by far my most prevalent and probably the most common indicators of a tick-borne illness between, me and other patients. I did also have multiple diseases. I have 5 other co-infections, including Bartonella, Babesia, Pod syndrome, relapsing fever, and an anti-1 tryptophan deficiency in my liver.
From what I understand, that's fairly common, though, is because once your immune system becomes compromised, you really become susceptible to so many other things very easily. So,
yeah.
What are some of the common medications and treatments that you've seen, and then the ones that you believe are most impactful now?
Yes. So the insurance companies will only cover 30 days of doxycycline. When you hear Lyme disease, more or less, you hear doxycycline right after it. And if you got bitten by a tick, if you got tested, and if you went on doxycycline within probably 12 hours of each other, that would theoretically work. But most of the time, that's not the case. You see it, you say, oh my gosh, a rash is forming, or, oh, I don't feel well. And then you go get tested. And for me, a year and a half later, I was well beyond that little point where maybe this wasn't chronic anymore. And I have chronic Lyme disease, so I've had it for 12 years now. Had I seen the tick, had I gotten tested, had I gone on doxycycline, I would have been completely fine. And so it's all about, timing. Timing is so vital when you have this illness. And so again, doxycycline is the first one that you'll obviously do. Treatments often range from, You could do supplements, you could do antibiotics, probiotics. There are many different kinds of treatments. They're all spread out because nobody really has a cure yet. So everybody is trying everything. I know people that, go hardcore antibiotics and probiotics. I know people that just do herbs and supplements. I know people that even go as far as to do a treatment called bee venom, which I don't know if there's enough research out there to prove that it's effective, but people are so desperate to have answers and to feel better that they will literally try anything, including stinging themselves with bees. So they will absolutely say yes to any kind of treatment if they think that it works. For everyone, it's not just a one size fits all treatment. And I can tell you right now, I have done the supplements, I have done the hardcore antibiotics, I have been, on both ends of that spectrum. And I can tell you with absolute confidence that for me, what worked the best is a combination of antibiotics, probiotics, and supplements. You take the antibiotics and, they kill the spirit kits. Lyme disease is a persister disease, which means that it has these biofilms. So when you go to the dentist, you get the plaques scraped off your teeth. That's biofilms. You think of Captain America or a superhero who can have that little force field around them or a shield. That's what the spirit kits have. They have a little shield around them. So antibiotics and probiotics really help. Some of them are called biofilm busters. You want to get rid of the force fields or shields. That way you can actually attack the parasite, the bacteria, the illness. And so for me personally, combination of all three works super well because the antibiotics, they can help you a lot, but they can also destroy your gut in the process. That's why you use probiotics and supplements, because you want to make sure that even though you're trying to fight something, you don't want to debilitate your gut, your liver, your other parts of your immune system. You want to make sure that you are well-rounded, healthy. My doctor, he put me into remission this year. That means that Lyme disease within me is in a coma-like state. I am at a 96% and 100% is obviously the best that you can be. And this was because he did a dapsone treatment. And he found out that dapsone, a 100-year-old leprosy drug, could kill Lyme disease because leprosy and Lyme disease are both persister bacteria and persister illnesses. And so he did that. He did that with methylene blue. And he did it with another various cocktail of probiotics and antibiotics and supplements. I was taking 42 pills a day for 9 weeks. It was, to be honest, really rough, but it went from 86 pills a day to 42 pills a day for 9 weeks. And now no pills at all. I don't take any pills. I have, my pill cases, they have been empty for months now, and it is the best thing to see. It's a brutal treatment, but for me, that is by far, I feel like this is the closest we are yet to a cure.
Oh, that's so super. So what type of supplements were you on during those 9 weeks?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I have to think about it because 42 pills is a lot. And so some of them I don't remember. But I definitely remember being on peppermint oil, I believe. And so you would take that. It tasted terrible. And I still can't have peppermint anything because it tastes so bad to me now. But I was on that. I believe that I have been on broccoli seed extract, grapefruit seed extract. I think a ton of other different oils. I'm kind of forgetting the names of them just because there were so many of them, and I would put them all into a shot glass of just oils. But yeah, so peppermint seed extract, I believe, was by far the one that he definitely wanted me on. He said, if you have a bad day and you don't want to take these ones, sure, don't take them, but you have to take this by all means.
Yeah. And when I was going through what was happening with my son, he had a viral and bacterial infection that had crossed the blood-brain barrier. And similarly, they said, look, it's got this whole biofilm going on around it. And the only thing that can really get through that are some of these oils. And so he was on things like boswellia, turmeric, oregano, olive leaf extract, things that could really break through the biofilm.
Oregano oil. Yes, that was a big one for me too.
Yeah,
that's terrible, but
it does. But that's a known killer of bacteria, the nasty kind. So no, I think I love what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about the foundation, some of the grants that you currently are offering, any particular types of groups, geography wise, or anything in particular that you really work well with.
Yeah, so the process of giving grants out to kids is my favorite and least favorite part of my job, because I read through every single grant application. And I don't know if I have any, trying to look, but I kid you not, like this big per year, huge. And I would read through every single application. I would know all of the kids by names. I would read them more than once. And how I would do it is 1 to 5, 5 being they're in dire need, 1 being they don't know if they have Lyme disease or not. And all of them without fail are 3s, 4s, and 5s. I have never put down a 2 or a 1 at all. And I read these applications and I am bawling my eyes out with every single year. It always happens. I just cry my eyes out because these parents and even the kids who are writing their applications, they have been through so much as well. And, this is kind of a time for them to really let it out, because a lot of the times they talk about how doctors didn't believe them, family members didn't believe them, their spouses didn't believe them. They were even in disbelief for a while, or they had, CPS called on them, went through divorces, lost jobs, lost houses, became homeless. All of those terrible things happened because of one tick bite. And so I feel so bad, but also so connected to all of these people. And so I read them multiple times. I, give them, I guess, like a score, if you will, and I, narrow it down. I read them again. I read them probably at the very least 4 times, 5 times. And then, I pick who I want to give a grant to that year. And most of the time I will see the last name more than once, meaning that they have multiple kids who have the Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses. And more often than not, it's because they gave it to them in utero. And so the moms, they feel awful. They said, I had Lyme disease. I didn't know that I had it, and I gave it to my child or children. And so they feel terrible about it. And I give them the grants. I have everything piled up and, organized. And then I call the parents. And, we have their phone numbers and emails as well. So I at first call them. And more often than not, they think that I'm actually a spam caller. So they'll hang up on me. So I have to say it really fast. I'm like, hi, I'm Olivia Goodreau from the LivLyme Foundation. I have to say it super fast. And I call them and, I let them know. And I give them, a couple moments and minutes or however long they need to talk about it, to talk it out, because more or not they're crying, which makes me cry. So we're all just a little bit of a hot mess down there. And then occasionally I get to talk to the grant kids themselves if they're well enough or if they're, in the area. And that is probably my favorite part. I get to, talk to them. I get to hear their voices and I get to, see what their hobbies are. What are they doing in the meantime? Do they like to read? I know that for me, when I was in the hospital, I loved to read because it was something that required little effort. And some of them like to paint, and I have pen pals that are grant recipients. So I write letters to them back and forth, which I love. And then on the other end for, giving grants to scientists, what I do is, I do my own research. I research, new tick-borne disease testing or something like that. And, then I email the scientists. I say, hey, my name's Olivia Goodreau. I would love to, come out to wherever university you are in. And I would love to, get to see your labs and get to, understand more about what you're doing and what you hope to do. And so I've given grants to Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, and University of New Haven. And the next one is Northeastern University as well. But all of them are doing incredible work. And I wish I could give grants to, again, everybody. That's the end goal. I hope that one day, I can give, how about the cure itself? If I could, ship that out to people and anybody who wanted it could get it, that would be my end goal.
That would be amazing. When you provide the grants to people, do you also have a list of doctors that can help, or do you have a community where people can connect with each other that are going through this?
Yes. So on our website, there is a resource page that does have a list of Lyme literate doctors and other websites that you can go to find other doctors, caretakers, anything like that. And, a lot of the times patients already have Lyme literate doctors, or, they say that they're looking for one. So whenever they ask, we always, provide them with that list. And on Facebook and on Instagram, there are multiple groups for Lyme disease. I mean, that's how the foundation started, was because I found a Facebook group and read that mom's story. And so they can go absolutely reach out to that group. And I feel like it is a very good group. It's very open and accepting because all of these parents and people have been through so much.
Yeah. Do you find that you hear more from some people in certain states than others?
At first, I thought that I was going to hear a lot more from East Coast people, simply because you hear about Lyme disease and you think that it's an East Coast thing. But I have heard probably an equal amount of people through all states and in multiple countries. I'm about to sneeze. Wait. Sorry about that. Thank you. But I have had grant applications from all 50 states and in Canada and Australia. Unfortunately, we can't do Canada and Australia yet just because it's like international currency. That would be a great goal to be able to have LivLyme go international. But yeah, I mean, I thought that at first it was going to be an East Coast thing, but ticks are everywhere, all over the United States, and they're even in Antarctica on penguins. So they are quite literally everywhere. And more often than not, you get bitten by a tick in your own backyard. When you're gardening, when your kids are outside playing, they're there. It's not just, you have to be in the thick of the woods to find it. And it could be at parks, backyards, front yards, really anywhere. And yeah, even in major cities as well. We had people from San Francisco, from Brooklyn. San Francisco, they got bitten at a park. Brooklyn, they got bitten at Central Park. And so it is everywhere. And I think that people need to, realize that it isn't just an East Coast thing. Don't get me wrong. It's very prevalent in the East Coast, but it's everywhere too.
Yeah. So thinking about your own home, what can you do to protect you and your family and try and cut down on the prevalence of ticks?
Yes. So you can spray your grass with permethrin spray, which is just harmful to ticks. It's not harmful to anything else. You can spray blankets, chairs, shoes, socks, clothing with permethrin as well. So that way, if you don't want to spray your yard, at least you have some kind of protection as well. They don't advertise it, but if you have a dog or a pet, get a Zaresto tick and flea collar. See, there you go. There's word jumbling. And that material, it rubs off on the couches, on you, all over the house. So it does protect you more as well. And I would also, there are these tick tubes, which mice have a lot of ticks on them. So they're all treated permethrin cotton, and the mice will take that and take it back to their nest, and it will kill the ticks. So, and you can also go on to the LivLyme Foundation. And if you have TickTracker, I would highly recommend getting that as well, because that's my app. You can track ticks in real time using geolocation. You can see what ticks are in your area at any point, at any time. You can even look last month, you want to see what ticks were in your area last week, you can do that as well. And we have data from, people, citizens, and then we have data from the Smithsonian and CDC and HHS and all of these public and private companies. And so I would highly recommend that as well. And also TickTracker does have more sources to where you can protect yourself and your backyards as well.
Well, so how does the data get put in there to TickTracker? How often is it updated? And
yeah, absolutely. So we get updates by the day. And this is just, people, they're out there. And if they get bitten by a tick or if they see a tick, they can report it and, they can give a general location. I mean, obviously, we will not, have that pinpoint right in your backyard, just, for safety reasons, of course. But it will give like a very general location of where that is. And it will then provide a tick risk index. So if you have an Apple Watch, or if you have the notifications on your phone and you're out in the woods and you're in a high risk area, it will send you a notification saying, hi, just to let you know, a lot of ticks have been reported here, please stay safe and, do a tick check after this, just stay vigilant. And so when we get data from the Smithsonian and other, industries and institutions, that has been obviously collected in the past. So we always ask, when did you get this? Where did you get this from? And then we plug that in for you all to see. And then on top of that, we have TickTracker Pro, which is for the scientists and the researchers who want altitude, humidity, air pressure, all of the other super nitty-gritty details. And this is for the people who will do tick drags. They will get the white sheet out and they will drag it across wherever in the woods or in the plains, and they will research this, and then they can publish their studies out to that area for other researchers to look at. So it's a very, it's like a common ground for all the tick researchers out there, and so they can visualize where other people have done research.
Wow, that's wild. Does pest control treat for ticks, or is that kind of a separate?
I don't know. I don't think, to be honest, that they do. I think maybe it would be more prevalent in the East Coast where, Lyme disease is more well known there. I know that here in Colorado, they don't, or I guess they never have for us. I think that you would probably have to ask your local pest control and, probably lobby for it, say, hey, this is a big issue. Can you do this for us?
Interesting. So when you're going through Lyme treatment, have you found that by having any certain types of foods or different types of foods kind of set it off or help you keep your body less inflamed? Or
I have the biggest sweet tooth, and the worst thing is that Lyme disease feeds off of sugar. So, and going back to my very first appointment with Dr. Horowitz, my current Lyme disease doctor, we got dinner afterwards because, it's a success. I've been diagnosed with 5 more diseases and, finally kind of on the right track because I finally know what's going on inside of me. It isn't like a big question mark. I know. So we're out there and he was like, I want you to have a piece of chocolate cake. And I was like, easier said than done. I was like, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll do it. And I did it. I ate it. And I was, leaning on my dad's shoulder. I was super tired afterwards. And he was like, yeah, that's Lyme disease right there. He was like, it does that very quickly. So you have a ton of sugar, you crash afterwards. And I have been heavily suggested to go on a hypoglycemic diet. He said that that's by far the best that you can do if you're on Lyme, if you have Lyme disease or a tick-borne illness, is to go on a hypoglycemic diet. And I feel like over the years have gotten a lot better. I've obviously matured more, so I don't have sugar whenever I want to. And I watch my body a lot more. Just eating healthy and, eating clean foods. And if you have the option to, choose Doritos or carrots and ranch, go for the carrots and ranch. And it's just, making sure that you are generally fit and healthy and active. And that helps so much with, battling these tick-borne illnesses. Yeah,
for sure. What have I not asked? What am I missing? Is there anything else you want to share?
Well, you wanted to talk more about the motor functions. I believe that we talked a little bit about that. I will say that there have been cases with my doctor and other patients to where he did the dapsone study, the dapsone treatment on them, and they were able to get up and out of their wheelchairs after, being in the wheelchair for months or years. So I will say, if anybody out there has a tick-borne illness and is wheelchair bound, you might want to look into dapsone. And my doctor has, published his study. It's out there. And if you do have a doctor or Lyme literate doctor, I would definitely ask and advocate for you to at least be on it. And it's not a fun treatment. It's brutal, but it's worth it. I went from being at, 70% to 90%, 96%. So it's definitely worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I have been taking my mom down to Mexico for her cancer treatment. And it was amazing to me how many Lyme patients I met that have been going down too. And the way they were describing it to me was not only rebuilding the immune system, but also helping the body detox a lot of what's going on. And so I don't know enough about dapsone. I'm definitely going to look into it, but it sounds like it's a very powerful way of killing bacteria and potentially detoxing as well. So
also, it's a generic drug. It's not something that's, super hard to come by, and it's actually relatively affordable compared to other tick-borne illness medications out there. I will say with the Lyme disease treatment in Mexico, I know a personal friend of mine and awesome scientist, Dr. Morales. He's in Lyme, Mexico, and what he does is he more or less cleans your blood for you. In one arm, they take out the blood, they, siphon it through. They make sure that all of, the toxins and impurities are out, and then they put it back in. And I've heard great things about it. And personally, who wouldn't want their blood to get clean? That sounds like such a great detoxifying thing to do. And I hope that in the near future, I'll be able to go down there.
Yeah, I actually did that with my mom for her cancer treatment. And I went ahead and I sat next to her and did it myself. And it's interesting. It's using ozone.
Yeah.
And ozone. And so what they do is they take yay amount of blood out of your arm, and then they add in ozone gas, and then they wiggle it up, and then they put it back in. And the ozone gas kills viruses, bacteria, and fungi. So yeah, it's wild. And I felt great afterwards. So
yeah, I bet.
I think we all can kind of get a little jumbled up from our environment, different things that take our system out of whack. So
yeah, definitely.
So you are so amazing. You're smart. You're beautiful. What's next? What are you doing?
Oh, gosh. Well, all of my friends are leaving for college right now, which is really sad. I don't leave until September 20th because I'm going to UCLA, and UCLA is on the quarter system. So I have a bit. My parents are very happy that they get to have me for a whole month. But yeah, I go off to UCLA. I'm majoring in public health and minoring in political science and global studies. And there is an awesome scientist and engineer at UCLA, Dr. Ozcan, and he has created this super efficient and effective test for tick-borne illnesses. It's the size of your pinky nail. It's a piece of paper the size of your pinky nail. It has about 50 to 100 dots on it, just, regular dots. And all it needs is a phone and 1 drop of blood. Awesome. And you can diagnose what illness you have and if there's multiple. And it costs 50 cents to make. So he's just waiting for the patent right now. And then he could sell it for $17 at Walmart. He could sell it for 30 or 40. This is an effective test, and, really effective tests for tick-borne illnesses now. You have to send a whole blood sample out, and it costs around $5,000 to do. If he could even sell this for half as much, and I'm sure that people would obviously go to that because it takes, I think, 30 minutes, he said, maybe less. And it's at your home. It's like a COVID test, but now for tick-borne illnesses. So I hope that when I get there, I can, work with him and try to get that out to stores.
Oh, that's amazing. So where do people find you? What is your website?
Yes, my website is LivLymeFoundation.org, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. If you just look up, the LivLyme Foundation, Olivia Lyme, and yeah, there you go. And there's also, Instagram pages for TickTracker, websites for TickTracker and the LongHaulTracker. There's a website for my new book that's out, which is But She Looks Fine: From Illness to Activism, which, talks about my whole story just in, more depth, and really, goes into what it was like in the mind of a little kid turning into a teenager and, dealing with this illness and the foundation and school on top of that, and, kind of working around all of that. But yeah, there's websites for everything. All you have to do is just look up the name and it'll pop up.
Thank you. And I'll be sure to add those in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
Thank you. Have a great day.